Hello everyone, I'm Shahab and welcome to another session on my YouTube channel. In this session we will talk about observability and OpenTelemetry in .NET and how we could set it up. We are going to use Grafana Cloud as our OpenTelemetry collector, and we will showcase how you could easily set up logs, traces, and metrics with OpenTelemetry, and we will also showcase how you could use Serilog to export your logs to an OpenTelemetry endpoint. So let's dig into it. Here we are at Grafana Cloud at grafana.com/org/shahabgenji, which is my organization. If you create your account, it will be your organization and the username that you have chosen for that one. And here you will see that I already have a stack created, and we want to go to the details to activate OpenTelemetry for my stack. So let's do that. We're clicking on the details. And there, if you scroll down, you will see here there is an OpenTelemetry that you could configure it for your application. Let's go and configuring it. It provides us with some endpoint, and usually what we want to do is to make this endpoint secure. So we need to generate an API token. Generating and giving it the token a name, let's say be observable, just giving it a name and then creating a token. And here are usually some environment variables that you might want to set when you are using OpenTelemetry, even though you could also directly pass these values to the configurations of the SDKs that are provided for you. But this is also another way. So we need these kind of tokens to be available for our application. I'm gonna copy everything to the clipboard, and we will use them momentarily. Here we are in Rider with a web API application. It has just one endpoint, weather forecast, and it is not that much fancy. And we want to add OpenTelemetry and observability to this one. The first step that we need to do is going and looking for OpenTelemetry, OpenTelemetry host NuGet package, and this is this one, and I'm gonna add that to my application. For now, we should be fine. Just bear with me, and we will see how we could add that. So we are adding the OpenTelemetry. The next step is to configure the resource that wants to export its observability information like metrics, logs, and traces to an OpenTelemetry endpoint. So we're using a resource builder in here, and we are configuring that service in here. So we are adding a service. Our service is, let's say, be observable service that we have, and we could also add some attributes to that one. These attributes will be attached to any information that we are publishing to the OpenTelemetry endpoint. So good. So far so good. After configuring the resource, we want to tell our service what kind of information we want to collect first. So I'm going with metrics, and we could say metric, and then I'm adding also tracing to my application, so traces. To be able to collect some information, we need tools that could instrument metrics and traces for us. And for that, we need specific NuGet packages that are built for this purpose. So let's go to our NuGet package manager. And here we're looking for OpenTelemetry instrumentation things. So let's add ASP.NET Core instrumentation, for example, HTTP instrumentation, maybe also runtime instrumentation. There are a couple of instrumentations there that you could just add to your project and benefit from that. If you're using Entity Framework Core, for example, and so on and so forth, there are a whole bunch of instrumentations out there. So by adding them, we need to also tell our metric collector which instrumentation we are interested in. So, for example, ASP.NET Core instrumentation, runtime instrumentation, HTTP client instrumentation. Let's say these are the things that we are interested in. metrics. Let's just reformat a little bit. And also for the traces, we could also do the same. So add ASP.NET Core traces, then HTTP client traces. At the end, after collecting all of this information and configuring our resource, we need to export these resources to somewhere. So we want to use OpenTelemetry protocol, which is a standard way to expose data to an OpenTelemetry collector. And then we are adding this to our project and closing this window. At the end of this configuration that we have for our OpenTelemetry, we could easily say .UseOtlpExporter. This UseOtlpExporter by default is looking for those environment variables that we copied from the Grafana Cloud. They are standard environment variables. It looks for them, and if it finds them, it just uses them. I'm going to the launch settings, the JSON application, and I'm going to add those OpenTelemetry exporters that we have just copied to here. A couple of things to mention is that here we are using the HTTP protobuf protocol to export the data. There is another protocol called gRPC, and you might, depending on how you are exporting those data, you might want to use that protocol. Before running our application, I would like to clear all the log providers that we have as well, just to demonstrate some concepts and some features in here. So let's run our application. The application is running. Let's go to which port is it running on? Let's go to this port that we have. I'm copying this, going back to our browser, and let's call the endpoint, which would be /weather forecast. And calling the endpoint multiple times. Let's see. When you are creating your Grafana Cloud organization, it will give you a URL that you could, in here, you will see that, and you could see all the logs, metrics, and traces that are exposed to this OpenTelemetry endpoint. So let's go there and see what do we have. So we are here, and if I go to logs, and I'm filtering in the last 15 minutes, and you will see for the beObservable attribute, we have some logs also exposed in here. If I go to traces, you will see there are some traces, and hopefully for the metrics, we might be able to see some stuff here. So we also have some metrics exposed to our application. And if I also filter it down to the last 5 minutes, you will see that these are just the recent stuff that we have exported here. But interestingly enough is the logs in here. We cleared all the providers in our application for logs. So we expected that there should be no logs available. But here we are, and we see a couple of logs in here. Another important things that I want to mention is if I hover over this name, you see it is beObservable attribute. Let's go back to our application and see why these things are the way they are in here. The first thing is that here we said the service name should be beObservable, but we are overriding it in here. So if you are using the add attributes, be aware that this one will override everything that you are passing to the add service method. This is one thing. The other thing is that if I'll go to the UseOtlpExporter, if I'll go to its implementation, it uses this UseOtlpExporter, and if we open this up, there is this important line in here that it says, note, we automatically turn on signals for use OpenTelemetry. And what signals they are automatically opening is logging as well in here. So ourselves have explicitly enabled with metrics and with tracings, but the with logging is implicitly, or here in this case maybe explicitly, has been enabled by using the UseOtlpExporter method. How we could disable that, let's go and see what needs to be done. Going back to our program.cs file, I am commenting out this line and I'm explicitly saying I want the OTLP exporter to be added for my traces and also here to be added for my metrics. And if I stop the application and run it again, let's go and hit the endpoint. Bear in mind it's 12:06 at my machine. I'm hitting this endpoint a couple of times, and now if we go back here and let's say for the last 15 minutes, let's refresh, we still see the logs are from 12 and not 12:06. And if we go to traces, and you will see we have new traces published in here. These are the previous one, and this is the new one. And if we also go to the metrics, you will see that we will have some metrics. If I again filter for the last 5 minutes, you see that 12:06 we also exposed some metrics to. Good. Let's get back to the logging. I'm clicking on these show logs, and we see here. Let me zoom a little bit. So here we see the logs are logged in a way that we don't know what is the content root unless we are clicking on that and we are scrolling down in here. And we see the content root was like this user path that we have or environment name. So we don't see those variables in here. We just see the message template instead of the actual message that was published like in the first class. So that's one thing. And let's go and change that in our application. Getting back to our application, I would like to enable logging again. So here is the provider. I don't want to do anything with it at the moment. And then options. Let's go configure the options first. So in the options, I'm saying include formatted message. So do not just put the message template in the log output, but include its formatted message. If there are some values, use those values. True. And if you have worked with ASP.NET Core, iLogger, and library, you know that you could create some scopes for your logs. And if you want them to be included in the logs, here we could also enable that, include scopes true to have that. And for the provider, let's go and say provider.AddOtlpExporter. Let's run the application again and see how it is affecting our setup. Going back to our endpoint, let's hit our endpoint multiple times. Let's go back to here. Let's zoom out a little bit and let's go to metrics. Again, let's see the last 5 minutes. We have like some metrics in 12:09, which is the recent run of the application. If we go to traces, we also see those traces around this time. And if we go to logs, we also see some new logs. But this time, if you pay attention in here, the logs are actually having now the values included in them. And if I drill down to the logs, it is the same in here. So we see these values in our logs as well as the message itself compared to the previous one that was in here. Okay, so far so good. Let's go to our application. Let's comment out the logging configuration that we have for OpenTelemetry and add Serilog to our application. I myself am a fan of Serilog because it enables me with extra features and it integrates very well with the iLogger interface, and we could benefit from the both worlds of the Serilog and the iLogger, and it also has an OpenTelemetry exporter as a sink, and then we could benefit from the all of these things. Let's go add Serilog and see how it will affect our configuration and setup of the application. Well, of course, as everything, we need to add the NuGet package for Serilog to our application. So I'm going to add like Serilog.sync and OpenTelemetry. So this is the sync that we need. I'm going to remove the pre-release version. So just adding in a stable one for now. And let's close the NuGet package manager. Let's create a logger. equals new logger configuration dot write to OpenTelemetry. And let's create the logger, create logger, and assign it to the static variable of logger. And we add the Serilog to our logger configuration. We need another NuGet package. It will be the ASP, not the sync, but the ASP netcore NuGet package. I'm adding that as well in here. And then we could say builder.logging.add Serilog and builder.logging, builder.services.add Serilog, also passing the logger in here. The reason I'm adding this line is because at the bottom I want to use the use Serilog request logging middleware, and that one use Serilog request logging middleware, and this one needs some services to be registered in the DI container that we have. Sounds good. Let's comment out the logging that we have in here, and we don't need that anymore because we are using Serilog now. And let's run our application again. So it is running. Let's hit the endpoint that we had again multiple times. The time is around 12:15 on my side. And let's go to Grafana, zoom out a bit. So if we go to logs again, now we see we have beObservable attribute and unknown service beObservable. And you see this one has a lot more logs there because it logs everything about the request and everything. And this is coming from the Serilog. The other one are the things that were configured by the OpenTelemetry. The reason that they are not the same service is because Serilog OpenTelemetry sync is OpenTelemetry protocol compatible, and it has its own implementation and not using the one that is in the OpenTelemetry standard packages. So we need to configure those attributes for this one as well separate. So in our application, I'm going to extract this dictionary and put it somewhere at the top. Let's say here, and .var, and then we have OpenTelemetry attributes, and then we could use that in multiple places. Let's say OpenTelemetry attributes in here, and then for our Serilog, when we are configuring the OpenTelemetry, we could have passing a lambda function, and then say options.resource attributes dot resource attributes equals the OpenTelemetry attributes that we created at the top. Stopping the application, running it again. Let's hit our endpoint multiple times and see what would happen. If we go now to our Grafana logs and we refresh, this one is still here because we still have logs from 12:15, which is less than 5 minutes that I filtered. But you see that new logs 12:18:58 appeared in here, and all of them are coming from this beObservable attribute that we configured in our application to be in both things. Let me just remove the beObservable attribute because we actually need beObservable. Let's call it API now. And everything now should be exposed to OpenTelemetry under this service name. It's 12:19 or almost 12:20 my side. Refreshing multiple times, going back there, refreshing, and you will see this is the beObservable API. I'm just marking it as the favorite one. Let's refresh, and everything is here 12:19, and those things are the ones from previous runs. I'm going to run the endpoint multiple times again just to collect more metrics and traces for better showcasing the results. And now let's go back to our metrics. Let's have for the last 15 minutes a refresh. We have some activities here around 12:10, some around 12:20, and you see for some of the metrics we have some values. We could also go to group by labels, and if I'll go to service.name, for example, we group by that. We close this part, and you see I have BeObservable API in here, BeObservable attribute in here, and for each of them we see some services that are showing the data. One thing I want to showcase for the logs is if I'll go to the very beginning of the logs that we created, the first ones that we were using the OpenTelemetry collector. And here, if I scroll down, you will see that there are a couple of properties regarding the telemetry SDK. And here they are. The telemetry SDK language is .NET, and the SDK name is the OpenTelemetry. And of course, the version of the NuGet package that we are using, which was 1.12.0. Now, if I am moving to the new logs that we are using the Serilog for them, let's go for this API one and the recent one, show logs. If I open one of them and scroll down, here you see that there is a difference. Now we are having, again, the .NET is the SDK language, but the SDK name is Serilog and it's not OpenTelemetry. And of course, this is the version of the NuGet package that we are using. And also, if you have paid attention, the Serilog is also adding more structured metadata to our application using that thing, and also like the scope name and those kind of information that might be needed in certain scenarios. One last point that I want to emphasize is that if you are using AddOtlpExporter and UseOtlpExporter at the same time, you will get a runtime exception. Let's see that in action. So I'm bringing back the UseOtlpExporter, and then I'm also using the AddOtlpExporter. Let's run the application. And you see there's an exception. And here you see that it tells us that AddOtlpExporter and UseOtlpExporter methods, they are not, they have been invoked on the same iService collection, and this operation is not supported. So bear in mind and be careful about using them simultaneously. Let's comment this out, and now we should have everything that we wanted for our application. The next point is that these AddOtlpExporters also having another lambda that you could pass, and if you want to configure the OpenTelemetry, for example, endpoint or the protocol, you could use these things. So here it is gRPC and HTTP protobuf. You could override the environment variables by passing a lambda and using reading these values maybe from your configuration. When you are using the OpenTelemetry sync for Serilog, you could also here options.endpoint and configure those values, also their protocol and everything. Protocol. And you could also say, for example, HTTP protobuf or something like that. But if you have environment variables set up in your environment that the application is running, it will always override these values for the Serilog OpenTelemetry sync. And if you want to avoid that, there is a second parameter, ignore environments, and you should set it to true so that your configuration values in your lambda that is passed in here will be taken into account. So far, we were pushing everything to somewhere in the cloud or some external application that might not be installed on our machine. But what if we want to use these features at the development time? So this is where we could use the Aspire. So we add another project to my application, new project. It will be Aspire, and we call it app host, and let's create the Aspire project. I'm going to reference the project that we have, the BeObservable project, and then in the program.cs, the only thing I need to do is tell builder.add project and the BeObservable project. We give it a name, BeObservable from Aspire, or just let's say BeObservable. this is the name that will be appear in the Spire dashboard. Okay, so let's change to the app host application. For some reason, I need to change the configuration. It seems everything's to be okay. And let's debug our application now. Let's copy this URL. Let's open it in our browser. So we are in the Aspire dashboard, and if we now hit our endpoint multiple times again, if we go to structured logs and select the be observable, we already see some traces in here. And we also see some metrics for our application, be observable. So we already have metrics, but for some reason the logs are not appearing in here. Let's check it out in our application. We go to our program.cs. Oh yes, that's because we mentioned that it should use this endpoint and protocol, which obviously does not exist, this endpoint. And we also said that ignore environment variable. So to demonstrate the previous note that I mentioned is if we remove the ignore environment variable and we stop our application, let's run the app host again. So the Aspire exposes those environment variables automatically for us and sets them to be pointing out to the Aspire dashboard and OpenTelemetry collector. And now if we run the application again, we'll see that some logs are appearing. And if now I run the endpoint a couple of times, the logs are in here. We have traces and metrics and everything. And you see that we have easily configured our application to work both in the development machine and pushing some data to the Grafana Cloud when it comes to production or other kind of environments that using those environment variables from the OpenTelemetry. Well, that's all I wanted to cover for this session. I hope you enjoyed this session. If so, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate that. And as always, enjoy coding and damn it,